Tappy Chat, Tappy Chat.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Tappy Chat. I'm Miss Alex from Tappy Toes Forest Hill, and I am going to be chatting today about mums. We're going to focus in on you guys. We have little ones, we're caring, we're parents, but we also need to think about ourselves. And particularly from postnatal, from that moment that you've had a baby and your body has changed and everything has changed and you're tired and you're exhausted and you're trying to fight back to what you consider your normal. And we've all been there. So we're going to have a look at postnatal health. We might even dip into pelvic floor. I promise, not for too long. And with me to take me on this fitness journey today, we have the wonderful Paulina from Mamma Mia Fitness, which I've just learned she runs alongside her husband. So it is a family business, and this is the lady who's going to talk us through fitness and everything about it because it's a tough challenge. It's a tough challenge normally in life, but suddenly adding in parenthood changes everything. So hi Paulina, welcome to Tappy Chats. How are you?
Hi. Hi, Alexandra. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very good, thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, just as you mentioned, it is a challenge to be a parent, and it is a challenge to keep on the fitness journey. So
you're a
I
mum
am really,
too,
really pleased
yeah.
to be here and just I am,
Oh,
I
that's brilliant.
am.
Yeah, I seem to keep picking mums of two for some reason. I'm a mum of two, and every guest I've had
Yeah.
so far has been a mum of two. But gosh, yes, it's a challenge. Why don't you start? Tell us about you and your family and how you set up Mamma Mia Fit.
Absolutely. So, well, my story is a bit long. So I started as a overweight kid. I always had problems with my weight. I lost the weight through trial and errors, and that's how I became passionate about nutrition and fitness.
Oh,
I actually moved to London because I'm Polish. I'm from Poland. I moved to London to study, and I became a dietitian. And at the same time, became a PT. So I actually kind of combined these two and started working as a, PT in London. At that time, I met my husband as well, who also have a baggage of experience with weight loss and overweight, being overweight as a kid. And he had a fitness studio in London. So we started working together then. Um, we were together for a couple of years, and I actually got pregnant, but I didn't know about this. So I had a miscarriage. That's a very, very sad story. I'm sorry to mention this, but I had a miscarriage, and I wasn't aware. That's when I found out that I was pregnant, and honestly, this experience changed my life because I before then I never considered, like prenatal, postnatal training, fertility things. I never kind of thought about it. I was young. I was, living my life, doing my training, enjoying fitness, enjoying everything. And then suddenly, this experience made me realize that, the advice out there and the people that you want to kind of speak with and just kind of find out more about what to do when you're pregnant in terms of fitness, what to do when you're actually postpartum, is very limited and it's very outdated. So I started to do a lot of courses on the topic. I joined, I don't know if you know, Burrell Education. She's UK based. She does a lot of courses for moms. I do highly recommend them. She trains the trainers. And when I was trying to get pregnant again, I actually started working with moms. So, and then that was the time that I actually realized that a lot of moms are just like me. They don't know what to do. They were never told. They go to the doctors. Doctor tell them, "Oh, just don't strain yourself." They tell them to avoid activity, maybe to do a bit of swimming. But then, if you have been like a gym rat like me,
yeah,
just swimming is not really good advice, isn't it?
yeah,
So that's what I found out. And they also after pregnancy, they are told, yeah, like they get the 6 week checkup most of the time, and they are told, yeah, you're fine. But no one actually checks them. No one checks the pelvic floor. No one checks the diastasis. No one actually talks to them. There's a lot of postnatal depression around, etc. And the doctors just completely ignore it.
mm,
So I was very happy to be in this field and start working with moms. But because we were alone in London, we decided to move to Poland, to my home country. So I actually got pregnant in London. I gave birth in Poland, and I went through a very dramatic birth experience. So that kind of taught me that being prepared and knowing about birth and all the things does not really mean that you're really prepared, because everything can just go really, really wrong. Um, but I gave birth. I had a emergency C-section. I knew what to expect after C-section from the courses, from the books, but really didn't have as much idea.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what I did is like 2 weeks after I had my intervention, I was like, okay, I'm fit. I was always fit. I want to go back to fitness. I felt the pressure of needing to bounce back.
Yes.
So, of course, what I did is I decided to do some abdominal training, because I was like, okay, my belly looks really bad. So maybe I'm just going to do a very, very, like, rehab based, but still a bit too much abdominal training. And my scar, this time, like, started to swell up, and I had problems with it. So that's kind of how I found out that, and obviously all the doctors that I've asked, everybody was like, there were different advices. Everybody was like, okay, you either can do this or you shouldn't do anything. You should like lie down in bed, but then you have this newborn to take care of. It was a mess.
Yeah.
So I've learned on my experience that, recovery just looks different for everybody. And that, despite all the advices, you need to really listen to your body. And you should not be influenced by, okay, you need to bounce back, you need to do this, you just really should start thinking about yourself and how you kind of get back to the fitness. Um, so from Poland, we actually, obviously, we moved in there because we wanted to have some support. But then what happened is that my parents are actually working, so they were not able to help us as much. And with the second pregnancy, we decided to move to Italy. So we actually traveled. So I've been pregnant in 3 different countries.
Wow.
And gave birth in 2 different countries. And I obviously have seen 3 different health systems and healthcare, so kind of like how the moms are actually being, care about. So I cannot. So that's kind of how Mamma Mia Fitness started. It started in London as an idea. Then it moved into online training for moms. And then with all this baggage and experience, it moved into online training, but for expats moms, because we understand. So first of all, we want to help moms to safely get back to training, get back to fitness without feeling like they need to bounce back or get their pre-pregnancy body back, or all these things that are kind of like, slogans online. But also we understand how difficult it is to be without support, not in your own country, not maybe understanding the language, not being able to get, the food that because imagining that you need a nutritionist in your own country. Let's say that you live in Germany, but you're English. If you get a nutritionist in England, they're gonna give you the foods that are in England, but you cannot access them in Germany. If you get a German nutritionist, they're gonna get you to eat something that you technically don't like because it's not your food. So that's kind of how we decided to create a whole company focusing on all these challenges that new moms could be experiencing abroad, but also as a new mom.
It's just another layer. I didn't even think
Yeah.
about that. It's another layer to have a child and then be focusing with all that pressure of that you put on yourself to get back to you wanting to be you again,
Yeah.
and other people are always looking at you because they judge your bump and they judge how you've recovered. But yeah, to take that and then add in the isolation or the extraction of being somewhere else is really hard when you haven't got that support system around you. So
Yeah.
yeah, being able to zoom in and talk to a human being that goes, this is what's going to help would be immense. So, where do you start? Where does a mum start? Say, I mean, I was going to ask about postnatal, but are you dealing with sort of pre-pregnancy fitness as well? I mean, where does the fitness journey begin for mums? I always feel like your body goes through such a change. Pregnancy is so dramatic, mentally and physically, that I feel like it's a clean slate, and the first most important thing that I learned was this body that I had now was Mark II, and I needed to respect it as Mark II and not try and compare it to
Yes.
my pre-baby body, but to make it as fit and healthy as I can be for me. So you've got a mum, she's got a newborn. Where do you start? Where should she start? What's the first thing?
Absolutely. So I think the first thing you're supposed to think about is the recovery and how it looks for her. Okay. So obviously she needs to think, she needs to have a look at, okay, how was her birth experience? Was it a vaginal delivery? Did she have a C-section? Were there any complications during the birth? Were there any support used, like forceps, in order to birth the baby? And how does she feel? Because I find that the general advice is like, okay, you need to rest 6 weeks if you had a vaginal delivery, and then if you had a C-section, you need to rest 3 months. But really, I think it all depends on how the mom feels, how her recovery and healing is going, and what was her level of exercise and movement and things before and after and during pregnancy. Because everything, like, we are all unique. And I find that these advices, like a cookie cutter diets, are cut in for, like, they're not cut in for the person. They are just like, oh, this is what it is. This is general advice. Just follow this. And I've seen moms that have had very traumatic birth experiences and they haven't been able to go back to exercise for 3 months, even without having a C-section. They were leaking, they were having very big problems with pelvic floor and no support, no one to talk to. And I also seen moms who had undergone a C-section and they could have gone to do activity after, like, let's say 4 weeks. But let's kind of focus on the question. So where did the mom start? First of all, she starts from pelvic floor and the core rehab. Okay, that's the first thing that we do. What do? We focus on breathing exercises and we focus on movement. So breathing exercises would be things like connection breath. I can explain it if you want. Maybe you've heard that term before, but I know that people call it differently.
Yeah.
So connection breath is basically an idea that our pelvic floor and our core and our diaphragm and our back muscles are all connected and they create like a canister. Okay. So whenever we experience issues like leaking, heaviness, pain during sex, any sort of weird symptoms down there, feeling like nothing is working,
Mm.
and or whenever we try to stand up, we have some dooming or coning or of our abdominal wall, we want to make sure that we start working with the pelvic floor and the core together. We need to reconnect them.
Yeah.
Okay, we do this through the breathing. It's not an exercise as people think of, like, okay, I'm gonna sweat and I'm gonna do crunches, etc. So that's definitely not this.
Yeah.
That's more like a rehab, lying down on your back, thinking about your breathing and about how to activate these muscles and reconnect to them. And then after we do these exercises, so we can start, I think we can start, I mean, the pelvic floor and the core rehab as a connection breath and the breathing exercise, we can start as early on as 2 weeks after giving birth. So we can technically start it straight away. Um, and then obviously when we talk about the activity, like squats, fitness, etc., it all depends on how well we are able to activate the pelvic floor and the core. Okay, as simple as I can put it. Then the other thing I would tell to the mom to start with is connecting to the baby, because that's super important to just be in this time with the baby and just focus on, yes, yourself and your healing, but also the fact that, yeah, now it's the time to just maybe not try to jump back into the fitness and squats, etc., but to just take this time to get to know the baby and get to know yourself in that new kind of new time as a mom.
Yeah.
And the third thing is movement, because I find that many times movement is confused with workout, and it's not the same thing, because movement could be as simple as throwing some dance move in your living room,
Yeah.
or playing with your baby, or walking around your house, or in general going outside and just having a little walk with the buggy.
Yeah, completely. Because it's so much going on. There's so much chemistry happening in those early few weeks.
Yeah.
You know, you potentially feeding a baby as well. You know, you need to be sort of nourishing yourself and just kind of getting back to some, you know, you've probably got no sleep, you're tired, you've got no time, you know, it's finding something quite small, little baby steps, but to feel like you're putting a bit of time into yourself, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I had two C-sections, you know, and no one told me about recovery. No one told me that your abs can even separate, you know.
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
not even having that information. They just said rest for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And I think I ran a 10K at 8 weeks because I was so frustrated with being just told to sit around and do nothing that I just went and did a race and got told off for it and did suffer for it a lot later. Um, but it's hard to know what's right for you, I guess. What like there must be sort of common challenges that pop up at this time that you hear a lot about from every mum that kind of comes to you. What would they be? Just the same sort of stumbling blocks that people come across.
I will tell you in a second just what I wanted to say with this thing that you said to me.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I'm the most upset about the advice that it's given to the people because the moms. Because I think that because we are all so different, I think recovery for you might look like that you need to be cocooned and you need to have all the support system and you need to stay in bed, you need to lie with your baby, you need to cuddle the baby and do nothing. But
Mm.
it could also mean that you're one of these people that you want to do. So why did the hell did they tell you to stay in bed? You know what I mean? That's just not right. So I
Yeah.
just would like to normalize that as well, that we are all different, and recovery means that you do whatever feels good
You. Yeah.
for you exactly.
Yes, because I remember a doctor saying to me when I first discovered I was pregnant, I was very active
Yeah.
the first time round, and I said, "Well, what can I do?" And she said, "Whatever your body is used to doing. So if you're used to a certain level of exercise, obviously listen to your body, but you can't not do it. You know, if you're used to running or if you're used to going to the gym, you just have to find a sort of a slightly gentler way of doing it." And I was like, well, okay, that's interesting. So my, you know, first pregnancy, I was even more active. And then suddenly postnatally, they're like, no, no, you have to lie still and do not move. And, you know, just you're somehow expected to lift a baby and care and change a baby, but at the
Exactly.
same time do nothing and recover. It's very different. The sort of I feel like there's more sort of pregnancy and sort of prenatal advice out there than there is once you're with your baby, and you're so fixated on getting to the birth that I don't think anyone ever plans for afterwards.
Yes,
Quite a
absolutely.
shock, isn't it? You know, I wish there was like a planning pack that you could kind of go, right, okay, so yeah, once I've had this baby, I'm going to feel this. I'm going to probably feel a bit of that. You know, you can't, as you said, predict what's going to happen in that birthing room. But yeah, having a little bit of knowledge and not kind of having to fight your way, because I just think everyone's the same as your story and my story. It's a
Yeah.
discovery, and we only learn by doing. And you think that's crazy. Everyone's done it. So there must be a pool of information that people can share.
Yes.
Um,
Okay. Let me tell you, because the question that you asked me, let me tell you about the red flags or like how
yeah.
exactly the sort of thing. If we could kind of talk about, okay, so what the mom's supposed to do when she gives birth, right? So she comes back home and I would say normal things that she's supposed to experience or like she's supposed to think about is, okay, I might have some hair loss. I'm gonna sweat during the night. I'm gonna have a lot of night sweats. This is gonna be crazy. I'm gonna feel really weird. I'm gonna have a lot of emotional roller coaster. And if I had stitches, instead of I get vaginal birth, I had stitches, I might have pain where those stitches are. I might feel really weird when I go to the toilet and I would try to pee. I might feel very weird. It might feel like I cannot control my bladder, okay, at the beginning. It might feel like I have um a lot of yeah, you might feel like what I've heard from moms that gave vaginal birth is that the first time to connect to the pelvic floor, it almost feels like you don't have any muscles out there. Okay. And that's completely normal at the first sort of stages. Um, then the other normal thing, if you had a C-section, you might feel a lot of scar tenderness. It could be that the scar is going to be numb. It could be that the scar is going to be painful. It could be that Um, just kind of thinking, it could be, yeah, I would say those are the first things to kind of be prepared for.
Mm,
But then the red flags is if we move in, if we kind of go through like 3 months period and then suddenly nothing, let's say gets better. So you leaking when you're sneezing, when you're coughing, or when you're jumping, or when you're walking, because that also happens sometimes.
mm,
Um, and your doctor told you to fine, you probably should get it checked because it might be the sign that the pelvic floor is just not activating and not functioning properly.
mm,
The other thing, if you get a lot of back pain, okay? So I know back pain after birth is normal to a certain degree, but that's kind of when we know, okay, healing process probably 3 months after, if you're still experiencing a lot of back pain
mm,
and it's a lower back pain and you need to sit down almost constantly and you cannot carry the baby, it might be the sign that your core is not working properly, that you might not have diastasis, which is the separation of the abdominal wall, but you might have, you might just not be, because what happens in a pregnancy is that our center of gravity changes. So when we have a growing belly, we move a bit forward. We have this tendency of, let's say, the belly kind of comes in inactive, and that's why is this thing? Because the advice, I don't know if you had this advice when you were pregnant, but the advice for pregnant women is not to do any core work. Which obviously what they mean is not to do any crunches, but you still have to. You have to engage your core, because if you don't, technically the separation would be bigger, but also the inactivity is going to cause the muscles to be really weak. And then all the work is going to be taken by the back muscles. So you're going to have a lot of back pain. So that's kind of what I see as well.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, because they're very quick to give you like a girdle support,
Yes.
but yeah, no one ever tells you, oh, you need to work on these muscles as well.
I
Ah,
don't know if you've seen these videos. That was quite popular sometimes on YouTube. Like that, the mom would actually show how a connection breath, which is the activation of the abs, looks like in pregnancy, and she can almost, I'm gonna use that very, very funny term, but she can almost suck all the belly in, okay? Even when
wow.
there's a baby around,
Yeah,
because of the fact that to kind of keep them strong, not doing crunches, not doing planks, not doing the classical kind of core moves, but
yeah.
doing sort of internal transverse abdominis work.
Mhm.
And if we don't, then after pregnancy, obviously everything is super loose, super, super stretched out, and super weak.
Yeah. Gosh, yeah, that's something interesting. Yeah, I'd never thought about that. Oh gosh. We touched on it, and I think it's important because I think there is so much almost embarrassment about pelvic floor and pelvic floor issues, and a certain amount of like, oh, that's just me now. That's just I just can't go to trampoline parks anymore,
Yes, yes.
me for life. That is what you get for having children, and it's part and parcel, and you just have to live with it. But there is help, and at what stage do you go, yeah, this is a problem, it's impacting on my life, and what can I do about it? I know my midwife talked about really expensive devices that you can buy to kind of like exercise your pelvic floor. But that was an expensive experiment that I didn't go down. But what would you advise people if they're worried about it? It's hard enough even for them to discuss it, but to seek help is next level, isn't it?
Absolutely. And first of all, I have to say that it used to be a new norm for a mom. Oh, you gave birth, now you're going to be leaking, or you won't be able to do like sneeze and cough and etc. You have to wear a pad forever, and that's normal. And I just want to say that it's not.
Mm,
And pelvic floor dysfunction, which means leaking or just kind of having exactly not being able to activate it properly,
yeah.
is almost like every single dysfunction or an injury. You need to work through it, okay? And the devices, yes, they sell all these devices that you have like a little egg or something that you insert inside, and then you can play. I've heard about this that you can play on your phone. There's a computer game. So, whenever the little character has to jump, you need to squeeze so it jumps. And the more you squeeze, it jumps more. But you seriously, you definitely don't need to go into that route to start working for the pelvic floor. So what I would suggest for a new mom is they either contact a pelvic floor specialist trainer or I think in England you have pelvic floor, pelvic health, no, women's health physios, which are actually physiotherapists who are specialized in pelvic floor dysfunctions. So they can conduct the assessment because problem with the pelvic floor is that the leaking can come from weakness, which means we are unable to activate and strengthen and properly work our muscles. But it can also come from tension. So what happens many
The
times?
other way, can't it? Yeah.
Yes. So many times what I see is like a new mom 99% of the time would have a weakness. But if she goes through the weakness and she doesn't properly engage the pelvic floor, what she's going to do, she's constantly going to be squeezing the pelvic floor because of the fact that she's going to be afraid of leaking. And that squeezing is almost like imagine that you go to the gym and you just do bicep curl forever. Obviously, towards the end of maybe 20, 30 reps, you won't be able to pick the dumbbell up anymore. That's exactly what happens with the floor. It gets tired and then it gets tense. So not only we can actually properly engage it, but we cannot even relax it. So that's kind of what happens. And that's what I see when I see moms that are, let's say, 5 to 10 years after pregnancy and they haven't ever done any pelvic floor rehab, but they were leaking. They come to me and they have this thing that they cannot properly relax. They cannot properly, like, they say to me that the symptoms will be they go to the toilet, they sit down, and then when they stand up, they feel like they haven't been able to properly kind of relax the pelvic floor and they have leaking because they don't know how to relax it. Okay. So that's where the other work comes in, not only strengthening, but also relaxation. So that's why it's very important to have it checked and kind of understand what symptoms there are, whether it's only I am leaking when I'm sneezing because I feel this massive gush of air and everything is just kind of letting go.
Mm.
Or is it also when I need to go to the toilet, I cannot evacuate properly, I cannot just do
Yes.
my thing properly, you know?
Yes. And it's a muscle, and every muscle
Yes.
needs to be, yeah, paid attention to and worked and understood. So you're a new mum, you've had a baby, you're in recovery, how do you you're exhausted, your time poor, what small things can you start to do to just get you back into routine? You can't spend 2 hours in the gym, you've got a child with you now. How do you do it? How do you balance your personal fitness with being a mum and balancing motherhood? It's a juggle.
It is. So, how do I do it? I have a lot of help. Okay. I do ask for help. I've learned that there is this thing about us women that we are a bit ashamed to ask for help,
Yeah.
and we feel like we have to do it all alone. We always kind of we have to be strong, etc. But when we actually accept this fact that, right, if we think long time ago, women, they were giving birth. There was a community of women ready to help, ready to take care of the baby, ready to do this, ready to cook, ready to do that. They were never doing it alone. So when we actually want to do it alone, we sort of sacrifice ourselves, and sacrificing ourselves, it is an honorable thing. But then what happens is that we we obviously are not able to be as happy and as engaged with everything because obviously, just we kind of forget that okay, taking care of ourselves is not selfish. It's sort of a survival so that we can take care of our kids
Children.
better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I say to new moms whenever they join our programs or whenever I speak with them is I always start with pelvic floor and core rehab. It takes 5 minutes a day. Okay, so there are the core and pelvic floor breathing exercises that I normally tell them to do around evening or whenever they're lying down in bed with the baby around, it could be, and they just do 5 minutes of core and pelvic floor rehab. On top of that, I encourage them to do movement. So daily movement. If they feel like going for a walk, there is a nice weather, I encourage them to go out with the baby. If the baby doesn't want to be in pram, maybe I kind of ask them if they can actually get the baby in a carrier, if they feel that the pelvic floor and core are strong enough. If not, maybe just doing some tasks at home, maybe asking someone to take care of the baby so they can just get some fresh air and do a little walk. And then the other thing that I encourage moms to do is I call it exercise snacks. I don't know if you've heard, there's a lot of research about that, that exercise snacks are so much more effective than actually getting a full hour of exercises.
Right.
So
I just
exercise.
heard the word snacks and I was in.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It sounds tasty. But yeah, it's like a mini break
yeah,
that you do activity, but you take instead of taking an hour, you take 15 minutes. You can do it whenever you are. And you don't have to have weights around, you don't have to have a gym around, you can do it at your home, you can do it at the park, etc. I just give them 2 to 3 exercises. They repeat it 2 to 3 times, always focusing on the pelvic floor and the core.
yeah.
And which doesn't mean that they do crunches. It just means that whenever we do a squat, for example, we just learn to activate the pelvic floor and the core properly in order to be able to do the squat with that. And I ask them to do this 2 times a week if they can. But again, it's all about this is, there is a um, best case scenario and there is whatever you will manage to do. But yeah, these are the things that's how we approach fitness. We just try to kind of find little time to kind of we don't try to plan mom's life around fitness. We try to find to plan fitness around their life so it actually matches their life.
Cool. And you do all your classes online, so you've not got to get to a studio. You don't need any particular
Yes.
space. It's just sort of fitting in. Do you always do one-to-one, or do you kind of collect mums together and do something more in a sort of group setting?
So we used to do the one-to-one sessions.
Mm.
Now we're moving a bit more into the group settings. We just find that it is a bit more engaging for moms as well because obviously they don't leave the house. I sometimes find when you are postpartum and you live abroad and you're alone, there's also this thing of like, okay, you have your friends, or maybe your friends didn't have the baby. It doesn't mean you don't have to even live abroad. You can be in your country, and then suddenly you find yourself in the situation. I have the baby, I'm stuck with the baby, I don't see anybody, I don't exit the house. All my friends, they don't understand. They don't understand because they don't. How can they understand if they never had a baby? They have the life of like, they want to meet at 10 p.m. for drinks, and you can't do this when you have a baby. So you suddenly feel very isolated. So I find that having thrown in some group classes, it gets moms to also actually talk to other moms, see that they are not alone on this journey. There are other people who also struggle. And I find that this is very, very useful.
Yeah. You mentioned right at the top when we started chatting about nutritionists and nutrition. How important is that in your recovery?
It's so actually our programs, they focus on nutrition
Mm.
and activity. So we do those 2 things together
Yeah,
because yes, recovery means obviously that we need to eat healthy, but healthy means a lot of things because obviously if we don't like thinking about scenario of a mom who just gave birth, she's at home, she's alone, and she has to cook the dinner. Most of the time, the dinner is not cooked. Most of the time, she grabs snacks on the go. Maybe she prepares something for the baby, but she breastfeeds. If she breastfeeds in continuation because it's almost non-stop.
yeah,
She does not have time to cook. So normally, moms would grab things like cakes, biscuits, anything that is confectioned and is ready to go.
yeah,
And obviously, the more processed food we eat, and the sugary and inflammatory oils, the longer our recovery, the longer our body will take to actually recover. So it's very important to try and balance the meals. How do we do that? That's kind of when we go back to this thing when you said, oh, it would be a nice thing to kind of have a little like guide whenever you give birth of what you should expect. And I always, if I have a chance to work with mom who is pregnant, I always tell her, okay, try to maybe cook meals, freeze them, or put a system. Sometimes there are meal deliveries or something like this that you can actually have whenever you give birth for this first months that you know that if you are unable to cook a meal for you, you know where to get it from.
yeah.
It comes to you cooked, it comes to you hot, it comes to you balanced, which means you have protein, it has good carbs, it has vegetables, so that you can actually help your body and your recovery.
Yeah. And you shouldn't be looking at cutting carbs and cutting
No.
sugar or anything at this. I remember a midwife just going, eat the chocolate cake, it will make the milk. And I was like, no, I can't do that. But it's like just, it's you need that energy, don't you? So you do kind of reach for the more sugary things. But
That yes, funny because a lot of moms who actually come to join our programs, they would tell us that you know, because okay, we get the new moms, but we also have to get the moms that are like 1, 2 years after pregnancy, and they tell me that oh, all the weight the pregnancy weight I lost straight after giving birth. But then, during breastfeeding, I was so hungry. I was just eating everything that I could find, And that is true because obviously milk, I think breastfeeding kind of loses something like 600 calories, but it's super easy to catch up on that calories whenever you have cake, right? So nutrition is super important in that part, I would say. And it's very important to, yes, understand that breastfeeding and recovery is not the time to go on a restrictive diet and cut the carbs, etc. But it's also the time to make sure that you have the balanced meals, that you know exactly how to create your meals in order to help you recover, but also help you to feel stronger and not to put that extra kilos.
Hmm. And yeah, that's interesting that your recovery journey can start at any time, and your fitness journey. Like my youngest is coming up to 3, and it's only now that I'm like, I really want to start doing something, which is why you kind of jumped into my feed and I went, oh, I must talk to this woman because I thought, oh, is all the focus going to be on newborns? But my children are, I'm well past that stage. But it's now that I'm finding it harder to get that routine and to lose that weight. And I can't call it baby weight when it's 3 years postpartum, but it is, and it's just stuck around. So yeah, you can start that journey at any point and just pick up where you are in your kind of fitness
Absolutely.
pose. Yeah.
Absolutely. And honestly, I admire moms who are contacting us and who are ready to take on that journey straight after having given birth because that, mm, like I would say, majority would not think about it. And there's many reasons, the main reason would be, okay, you are alone, you kind of take the baby, you're tired, you don't feel like you want to take care of yourself. Like everybody thinks that taking care of yourself in terms of like taking care or like getting back to fitness means that you have to go to the gym, you have to pick up some crazy classes, you have to do some crazy diets, you have to cook 3 different meals for everybody, then you have to everybody thinks it's such a struggle that no one wants to start doing it, right? That's why probably you waited as well for a long time because obviously there were different priorities. And I completely understand that. That's why we try to make the programs that we run so much more adapt to moms and easier for them to not to complicate their life, but to actually make it fit in their life. Um,
And more of a
so for
permanent thing as well, because I found
Mhm.
that I can do short-term things. I'll do a fitness program or a short-term, and it works, and you lose the weight. But it's just being a mum and being busy. It's not sustainable to keep up that level of
Absolutely.
activity and to keep doing all those kind of meals, and it just slowly, slowly goes out of the window. And what would be more handy is to find a way of just making small adjustments but that stick, so they're more like
Yes.
permanent habits that you can kind of implement and then you start to see results over time rather than this crash diet,
Yes.
up down, which is where I always kind of get to because eventually the kids take over and you lose the will to keep going with it. Uh,
Yes.
yeah. So if there was like one thing, because I could talk about this all day. This is my pet subject now. But I know you're a busy lady, and there's lots of people out there that need you. Just to kind of finish up, if there was just one thing that you wished every mum, every new mum knew about their recovery that would help them, what would it be? If we could get that information out there to everybody, or even people that are listening now and as relatively new mums, what myth do you want to bust? What bit of information would you give them that we were never told that would help? No pressure.
Okay. I know this is not like something that we were never told, but definitely I would tell them that, like we discussed, recovery is unique. And what you mentioned, very important, recovery can start at any point. Okay. And um, I would say if the mom is straight postpartum and she wants to know how to prepare for the recovery, what to do, etc., it's definitely not to look for advices online, not to look for advices from the influencers, etc. They're bouncing back super quickly. And also, the best advice could also give someone is that that mom needs to listen to their own body. that she needs to know herself. So if she knows that for her recovery means that she meets friends, she goes out and she's happily living her life surrounded by people, she needs to do everything to recreate that possibility, to recreate that thing. If she knows that she needs help, she needs to make everything possible to get help in, whether it is from her parents, parents of her husband, but also babysitters. That's very, very important to not to feel like she needs to do it all alone. And then, if she wants to start, if she is the one that she wants to start her journey into fitness, she needs to definitely think about, okay, how do I go back to fitness? Thinking about my pelvic floor first, my core first, so my pelvic floor and my core health. And then how do I squeeze in some little movements in my day that does not feel like it's too much? How do I learn or try to balance my meals so I get in each meal protein, vegetables, and good carbs? What I mean by good carbs, anything that is going to be slowly released, so everything that is lower glycemic. So if we think about bread and pasta, maybe you want to swap them into a little bit more darker option, or even options that are a bit more less inflammatory. So like for example, rice, or maybe quinoa, potatoes, all these sort of things. So things that are going to be a bit less easier to digest and less also kind of hard on our blood glucose, etc. And then the other thing that she needs to think about, sorry, just kind of gone off a bit off the topic. Yeah, so that would be probably what I would tell them, to just kind of, and then if she's ready to start her recovery, her journey back to fitness, it's never too late. That's also what I would tell them.
Yeah, don't rush it, and it's never too late.
It's never too late.
Yeah.
You're unique. You need to think about yourself. You need to think about the family, and you need to do whatever feels right for you, not whatever doctors would tell you. And if you also, the other thing, if you feel like there's a sign or symptom that is worrying to you, despite doctors telling you, okay, everything is fine, I would encourage you to seek help in different professionals.
Mm. Yeah, a lot can be just explained as postpartum. It's
Yeah.
well, you're postnatal, you're postpartum. This
Yeah,
last
don't accept the new postpartum as a new norm. That's
yeah,
definitely something that I would tell them.
yeah, wonderful. Oh, it's been lovely to chat to you today, Paulina. Thank you so much. If people want to find you, how can they find you at Mamma Mia Fitness?
So we are on Facebook and on Instagram as Mamma Mia Fit as Mamma Mia Fitness. Our website is mammamiafit.com. And oh, I wanted to also say that people who are listening to the podcast, if they would like to get something from us, because we have a little kind of, we put little resources. So for example, if there are any if they're interested in any of these topics that we kind of talked about, they can email us, and we're going to send them a little PDF, whether it is for weight loss, whether it is for recovery, pelvic floor and core recovery. That's kind of that's how they can kind of start connecting with us. And then just wanted to say that the programs that we run, okay, they kind of focus on the exercise and the nutrition part. So like I was saying to you, this all kind of we kind of try to combine in one program the advice you would get from nutritionists, from a pelvic floor expert, from a PT, and from a naturopath, which is like a doctor specialized in supplements and in herbal medicine, so that moms can get everything in one place. They don't have to go and look for stuff and combine different sort of messages and knowledge into one, and that everything is done for them and is fitting their lifestyle.
Amazing, because food is so much part of healing. It's wonderful to combine it. And look, resources are out there for you guys, so use them. Do please reach out for any help that you need. And thank you so much for joining us today, Paulina.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
It was
Bye
great talking to you.
bye.
It's Tappy Chat.